And we want to go to Module 4. And I'm going to start by bringing up the PowerPoint slides. Kind of just to go through, they have a nice, one aspect of the PowerPoint slides that I do like is they have a little demo of like the main features that we're going to use. Okay, so if we look at this slide up here, we know what a chart or a graph is. You know, an embedded chart is a chart on a worksheet. That's what we're used to doing. There's also something we can move a chart to its own worksheet. Remember we talked about workbooks contain worksheets. There's also can be a chart sheet. We'll do that a little bit later. Each chart has a data source. The data obviously that is being graphed. The data source is comprised of the series name, like the label for it, you know what it might be, like Canada, USA, Bulgaria, and then the series data. Okay, the data series is the actual number, and then it also has categories. Okay, and we're going to talk about this a little bit. I think you remember maybe back from Stat 301. What's kind of nice about charting is it is pretty intuitive, and as you build a chart. There are chart tools that are specifically for charts, and there's 3 main tabs under there: design, layout, format. And we're going to change a lot of things using that, including the title, the legend, all those good things. Now, the first part, especially of this module, I think is going to be review. The second part, maybe not as much. But what I'd like you to do is go to Module 4. In Blackboard, go to Module 4 Data Sets, and we want to bring up the tutorial, and we're going to bring up fun.xlsx. And we're not submitting this, so I don't care if you put your name in it or not. And I'm going to roughly follow along with the book, but not exactly. Okay, so this workbook has a bunch of data, a lot of different worksheets. We are going to go to the assets worksheet. That's where we're going to start. And I know we built this before in Stat 301, but we're going to take this investment category and assets, and we're going to build a pie chart. Okay, so what we're going to do is we will highlight A3 through B8. And we're going to go up to insert. And in the chart grouping, we're going to select pie. Under there, there's 3-dimensional pies, but we're just going to pick the first one, the 2-dimensional pie. Okay, and we have our chart. So the first thing, and I don't think we did much of this in Stat 301, but a lot of times, you know, this is an embedded chart now. It's embedded on this worksheet. We can move this chart. So if we go, if you click off of it, you'll notice that the chart tools go away. If I click on it anywhere, you'll notice we get those back. Under chart tools, we have design, layout, and format. Under design, under the location group, there's a move chart button. You guys see it up in the upper right-hand corner. If we click on that, we can say, and we'll do this a little bit later, we can put it in its own new sheet, which is called a chart sheet then. That's the only thing in the sheet, no data in there. Or we can make it an object in an existing worksheet. And what it likes us to do, what we're trying to do in this module is we're going to put all this stuff into one worksheet. So it wants us to move it over into the summary report. Okay, do you guys see the summary report? We do that, you're going to do that in the modules too. So move it to the summary report. Okay, and you'll see that it moves it, the same graph, from that worksheet to the summary report. It's still referencing the data from the assets worksheet, but it's moved to the summary worksheet. Okay, so, and I'm sure this isn't new to you, but if we want to move this graph, okay, there's little looks like 4 buttons up here. Go ahead, Samantha, you have a question?
No,
Stretching, okay. So if we put our mouse over there, and it turns into the 4 arrows, and then we can hold down our left button and move it wherever we like. I guess I'll move it up there a little bit. And if we grab a corner, we can obviously resize it to whatever size we like as well. Okay, and I know we saw this before in Stat 301, but I guess we can go over it again. If we look at some of the main elements of the chart tools, the first one is the Design tab, and it has predefined layouts. Now we can change any aspects of this that we want, but it says, you know, instead of reinventing the wheel and changing every specific aspect, these are like templates, if you will. So if we go to Chart Layouts, you'll see the different types of layouts. And let's just, for lack of a better, let's select the 6th one here, okay, which has, maybe not the 6th one, I don't like that one. Yeah, let's select the first one. Go ahead, Samantha.
Can you do that one again for this tab?
Sure. You're on the chart, Samantha? And you have chart tools, yes?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you go to chart layouts, see this grouping right here? Okay, if you click the drop down, there are several styles, like predefined styles that you can choose from. I chose the first one. I think the book has you choose the 6th one. So that one in the upper top. So that'll change some of the attributes of your chart. Okay. Now, we're going to play around with a couple things here. The other thing under design that's nice, and I think we saw this in Stat 301 as well, is there's a way to automatically choose a various templates of color under styles. So I typically like the black background, so I'm gonna choose that at this point. Make this a little bigger. Now there's often multiple ways to get at things with Excel, and that's true especially in charting as well. And a lot of times if I want to change something, I can click on it or double click on it, and then there's options that come up. I want to change the title here. Currently says assets, and I really want to change it to allocation of assets. So if I click on it once and then start typing, you see up in the formula box, you can see what I'm typing, and nothing's changing at this point, but I'm going to change it to allocation of assets and hit enter. You know, and it changes that for me. While that is selected, if I wish, I could change some other things about it as well. For example, maybe I think the font is too large. I could change the font to, I don't know, a smaller font. I could bold, italicize it. I have to go over the Home tab because that's currently selected. I have to make sure that's still selected, and it is. And I could change it to whatever I like. Okay, so the other thing that's useful as part of the chart tools is the design pretty much has, and we'll get to this, it has the layout, it has the styles. We can move the chart to a different worksheet or make it its own chart sheet. We can also, we'll do this a little bit later, change the chart type, and we can select the data. What we're going to use probably as much as anything, however, is the Layout tab. Okay, and the Layout tab has a few different things up here that are nice. It has a group of labels. Okay, so for example, the legend at this point, if we click on the legend, we turned off the legend because we grouped the data labels specifically with the things that are typically associated with the legend. But let's, I don't know, show a legend at top. Okay, I can do that. The other thing that I might want to change, data labels are the labels specifically given to points in the data series. Now for this one, each slice is a data point, if you will. So if we go to data labels, okay, and a lot of times it has some predefined things that I want to do, like center the text, whatever it might be. But if you want the full gamut of things you can do with data labels, we should go to more data label options. And the same thing is true with the legend. If there's more legend options, gives us a whole bunch of things we can do with borders and shadows. So always, it gives you some predefined things. But if we go down to the bottom under the more, that's where we can get specifically more information. Now, I picked a predefined style that had the category name, for example, bonds on the data label and the percentage. But if I wanted to change that, I could. I could get rid of the category name because we say, hey, I have a legend now. I don't need the category name. The leader lines, right now we're showing the leader lines. If I want to get rid of those, those are the lines that are touch the data series. We can get rid of those. Now in this case, adding the series name to our label options, everything has the same series. Everything is part of the same series. So it doesn't add any value, right? It's all assets. So if we put on there, it's just more data. If we graph two data series at once, and sometimes we do, for example, with multiple bar chart, we'd want to see that series name. Okay, but in this case, we do not. Okay. Oftentimes in here as well, when we do the data label options or anything, there's a number. Okay. There's a fill. There's a border. Let's just leave that alone for now. And I'm going to close that. I think we're pretty much done with that aspect. Let's say we want to change a color of one of the pie slices. Okay. Let's click on the pie chart. And you notice when I click once, it highlights all of the pie slices, okay, at once. But if I click again, let's pick that US stocks one. Now you notice it has only selected the US stocks pie slice. And if I right click on that at this point, this is one data point. That pie, that slice, represents one data point of the data series. So if I do format data point, is where we'll see, all kinds of things we can do. And right now, the fill is automatic, okay? Which means automatic means it is choosing that for us. It chose a red fill for us. If I want to do a solid fill, but I want to choose the color, and I'll choose orange, I can do so. As well, if we want to, a common technique, and I know I showed this in Stat 301, common technique in a pie chart is to explode a pie slice to kind of highlight that this is what I'm focusing on if I'm talking about in a PowerPoint presentation. Let's say we want to talk about bonds. If I click on bonds once, because it's highlighted now, if I left click, I can drag that out as much as I like. And now I can talk about that slice as being something special. Okay, and sometimes we have a lot going on in a chart. We may have a title area, an axis area, a chart background, the data series themselves, and you may get confused like, okay, what do I change? How do I get there? There's multiple ways to get this. One way, and I don't think I did show you this in Stat 301, if we go under Layout, in the far left under Layout, there is a current selection grouping. You guys see the current selection grouping? Yes? So right now, what we're currently selected on is series, asset, point, bonds. Okay, that's what's currently selected. If I'd like to select something else and change the format of it, let's pick the chart title again. Okay, now the chart title is selected, and maybe I don't want to right-click on it and access it that way. What is selected underneath that box, there's something that says Format Selection. It says whatever I'm currently selected on. In this case, I'm selected on Chart Title. If I click on Format Selection, it will bring up the options for formatting the chart title. You know what I'm saying? So I don't have to know to go to the title button or right-click on it. Whatever I currently want to monkey with, as long as it's selected, now I can change whatever I like with that. Okay, so I don't know if I want to change the alignment. Just going to make it ugly. Okay. But I wanted to show you can change things, so I'm going to undo that. And then we're back to the beginning. So I think probably most of that was review for you guys. What questions do you have on that? We're going to go to, next thing we're going to go to is a column chart. Questions on this? You guys feel pretty comfortable with that? Okay. Okay, leave that there. Then let's go to sectors worksheet. And we're going to show this data in a column chart. So we're going to highlight the data first, A3, the whole way down to C15. I'm sorry, we only want to do the new century. So A3 to C15. We don't want to do the S&P baseline yet. That's another series we'll add in eventually. But at this point, we just want to do the new century, okay? So I'm going to go up to Insert. And we're going to do a clustered column, which is, what we think of when we typically think of a plain Jane bar chart. And I'm going to click on that. And it's going to give me the start of a column chart. You'll notice what's nice about the charting tools is the same attributes we can change with the pie chart we can change here as well. We can move this to the summary report if we want. So I think it wants us to do that. So I'm going to move the chart over here to the summary report again. So now I'm building, and I'm just going to move this down. So now I'm building a report that has all this information on it. I'm going to change the style, go with my black again, like the red. Okay, so often there's multiple ways to do this. The book asks us to get rid of the legend. New Century isn't really helping us, not adding anything. Give me one way to do that. Leah?
Just click on it and delete it.
Okay, click on delete. Give me another way to do that. Go ahead, Robbie.
Go to layout, hit none.
Okay, go out of the layout, go to legend, and say turn it off. Okay, so either way will do the same thing. It wants us to change the scale of the vertical axis. Okay, so right now it goes from 0 to 16%, and oftentimes Excel does these things as automatic. So under layout, there are axes, okay, and we can do this a couple different ways to get to this same thing. But let's click on the axes, and this is the vertical axis. And you see it says show axes and thousands. There's some predefined things we can do. But once again, this isn't really what I'm trying to do at this point. So if I go down under more primary vertical axis options, we can see, what all the things that we can change. A couple things. On the left-hand side here, the left nav of this format options, the number is used to say the number format of the label. For example, this one's percentage. We could change that if we like. Okay. The format code is 0.00%. If I wanted to go down to, let's say let's go down to 1 decimal place. So I'm going to change that to 1. I'm going to go back to axis options. You saw that automatically it changed it to 1. We can also define the appearance of the tick mark values. A lot of times we do that with the fill, the line color, the line style. The tick marks are the little values across the axis here. What it wants us to do in this case is it wants us to change the minimum and maximum for this axis. So the minimum is 0. It wants us to make the maximum fixed as well, but instead of 16%, it wants us to make that 0.25%. Oops. Or 0.25 for 25%. Okay, click close. I want to see what this looks like. Okay. Now the other way to get to that same dialog we were just at is that I can right click on that, double click on it, and it goes to the same, double click on that axis, it goes to the same option. Okay. What we want to do here now is we want to add in, we have the new century, as you guys see. We also want to add in the what was it, S&P 500, I believe it was. So let's go to up to design. And we're going to go up to select data. We haven't seen this interface yet. And we have one series, the new entry series. Let's add in a new series. So I'm under legend entries, I'm going to click add. And I need to go over to, I think it was sectors, was it not? I need to go over to the sectors worksheet. Okay, so while that's still selected, I'm going to click on the sectors worksheet, and it's using a reference to that worksheet. And the series name is S&P 500. So I'm going to click on that. If I hit the tab key, okay, it'll take me to the next, the series values. And the series values are in D4 to D15. I click OK. I click OK. And for some reason I lost my title, but I could put that back. And now we have both the series on there at once.
Can you do that again?
Sure. Let me go back. So I'm undoing. Okay, so we have right now the New Century Fund, right? What I'd like to do is I'd like to add in the S&P 500. So I'd like to show a multiple bar chart is what I'm going for. So under Chart Tools, Design, Select Data, this is where I add and edit and delete data series. That's what I graph, right? And I can do multiple data series on the same graph. Right now I have the new series data series, but I want the S&P 500. So if I click Add, it needs two things, okay? It needs the series name. Well, this is maybe what Lorraine, you missed. We're on the Summary Report tab, but where's the data at? The data's in the, so I got to go over to Sectors, okay? So I'm staying in that same dialog, and you notice, and we really haven't talked about this much, but the Sectors exclamation point says, this is the worksheet to reference. So not only do we need like a B3 or whatever it is, but Sectors exclamation point says, hey, this is, reference this worksheet. You know what I mean? It's like an address. So now Sectors 3, or Sectors exclamation point is there. It wants the name. Well, the name is, you know, S&P 500, so I'm just going to click on that. I can do this a couple different ways. I could just click down in that box, or if I hit Tab, it'll automatically take me to the series values. And my series values are D4 through D15. And automatically, because I'm selecting over there, it says, hey, you're in sectors, you're selecting this, it automatically pre-fills that for me. It'd be a pain in the butt for me to type sectors, exclamation, make sure I spell it right. So I click OK. I click OK again. Okay, and you see it did undo a couple things. For example, it undid my 0 to 25%. Got rid of my chart title. I could make all that happen again. Get my legend back. Because now it makes sense to have a legend. Okay. So I think some of that, maybe a lot of that was review from Stat 301. And I really do like the charting interface Excel has because, it's very intuitive. There's more than one way to get around in it. You only really have to know one way, but there's more than one way to get to a certain place. What we're going to do is we're going to move in the second section, which deals with line charts. And I'm pretty sure you guys have used line charts before. Oh, I know you have in Microsoft or in Stat 301. But we're also going to deal with something called spark lines, which I don't think you've used a whole lot of. So let me go to the PowerPoint slides and talk about what we have here. Spark lines are going to be new. We'll get those in the second module. A spark line, if you think about it, and data bars are like mini graphs. Okay, so sometimes I have tables of information, and I can see some trends if I look at the numbers. But remember, we're trying to communicate with someone, so visually we want to put a picture in that. Well, spark lines are little graphs that live inside cells. You know what I mean? Like it's not a graph on its own. It's a graph that can be combined in one cell. So you can have a table, and beside the table, you can have a cell. The other thing are data bars. Okay, so these are something that are new to us as well. We'll do those in a minute. A data bar is a bar inside a cell, kind of like a bar chart that represents the number. For example, you see in this little example up here, healthcare is 14%. That bar represents the biggest bar. The lowest one looks like is telecom. It's 2.5%. The bar relative to that other bar is much smaller. So, numbers, we have to interpret those in our minds. 14 is bigger than 2. We do that quite well. However, pictures are faster, right? So it can really trying to inform people. It's a lot better. Line charts, I think that we've seen these before. When we create this line chart, we're also going to do a custom axis title, which I don't know if we did that in Stat 301, but you may have done it somewhere else. So you'll see that in a moment. We are also going to do something called a combo chart. Okay, a combo chart is when I kind of combine elements of two charts into one chart. Okay, so I'm showing, this is going to be the one we're creating. This is actually a bar chart or a column chart, and you can't really tell because the line's there, but it's integrated with a line chart. Okay, and the line chart, we're going to make the line invisible, but leave what's called the marker. So we can see a couple things happening at once. Remember, we're trying to communicate something to someone. So let's start with the line chart. That's what the book wants us to start with. So let's go back to your workbook. And we want to go to the fund history. And we're going to highlight this whole ball of wax, so from A4 down to D44. And we're going to go to Insert. And as you might suspect, we're going to do the line. Now, how many data series did I graph there at once? I graphed how many data series?
40.
What's that?
40. 3.
No, 3. Okay. 40 was the data points that I have for each data series. But if I go up here to select data, we can see the 3 data series. There was New Century, large growth in S&P 500. If I look and edit any of those, we reference the top cell. B4 was the series name, and then B5 to B44, the data points, that's the series values, that we're graphing. So, by doing that, we're graphing, by highlighting those all and inserting, we are, graphing 3 things at once, okay? Still have the same, basic styles. If we want, we can change things. Let's put a chart above. So I'm going to go to Layout. I'll put a chart above the chart. I would change that to Fund History, but you guys know how to do that. Okay, something we haven't done. Let's go to the x-axis here. So double click on that axis. If you got chart area, that's not good. Double click on the axis. If you want to get to that through a different route, if we go up to layout, we can do the horizontal category axis and then say format selection. We'll get the same place. Okay, so right now the major unit is every 7 months. Okay, Excel does a nice job of recognizing the date. We want to, 7 months doesn't seem like a good way to communicate with someone. We don't think about, that'll be 7 months from now, but we do think in terms of years and months. So let's change that major unit from 7 months to 2 years. So we're going to put a 2 in there, and then we're going to put a drop down. And you see automatically over there it changes to years. In the minor unit, let's change that to every 1 year. Now the minor unit, changing it to 1 year, really didn't change anything. Why? Why did it not change anything as we did that? Well, the major unit mark is 2 years, but why didn't it really change anything? Well, if you look down below, the options we have, what we have down here, major tick mark type, what we're doing for major tick mark type is we're putting in outside tick mark. For a minor tick mark type, we're saying none, okay? Perhaps we do a cross now for the minor tick mark type. So now, every 2 years, we have the outside, and then every year we have the cross, if you will. Okay, so now we can see, this is 2004, 2005, 2006. So, you don't have to have minor units and major units, but maybe there's something you want to do. It makes more sense. As we mentioned earlier, when we go in these axes, or any kind of option, we also have this number, okay, this number format. And right now, the date looks like a date, right? It looks like month, day, year, year. I can add my own format code if I like. What we call it a lot of times in the programming world is a mask. Right now, the mask you see is MDYYY. If I want to just show the year, I don't care about January 1st because it really doesn't add much value, I can go up to this format code and delete it and just put in YYYY, 4 Ys. Click Add. Okay, and now that is the mask. The data didn't change, but the way I masked it changed. You know what I mean? I'm just showing that element. So now I have 2004, 2006, 2008, because the January 1st didn't add any value, right? We didn't care about that. So that is something that I can change over there. Speaking of the same thing, let's change the y-axis, the vertical axis. So we can double click on it, or we can go to vertical value axis up here and say format selection. We can double click on it, or we can go to axes, primary vertical axis, more options. So that's 3 ways we can get to this screen. Now if we look at this, it is showing us 2,000, 4,000, 6,000, 8,000, 10,000, 12,000, And the zeros really don't add much value, I guess. So one thing we could change is we can show the display units in thousands. So if we click on that, instead of it showing 2,000, it shows 2. And instead of showing 4,000, it shows 4. Okay, now, one of the things that we might want to show the person so they understand that is thousands. Obviously, we have the label over there that says thousands. But if we go to number, let's talk about that mask again. The mask right now, you see that format code? It says £, comma, £, 0. What that's saying is put a comma in there and put the value in. If we want to have, how do we know, like, if I say how much I have in my 401k, I use the term K, usually the letter K to represent thousands. So if we go down here to that format code, and right after the 0, if we add a double quote, I'm going to put a capital K, and a double quote, and I click add, okay, now you'll see it added, the K to the bottom. So we formatted the K after there. Sometimes in a graph, we want to conserve space, and one thing we might want to do, the legend is kind of taking up a lot of space, but there's some space on our chart area. So if we want to overlay the legend on the chart, if we go into Layout Legend, if we go to Overlay Legend at right, okay, it's no longer in the chart group, it's in the chart area, in the border, and then I can move it down into the corner, overlay it on the chart itself. So it gives me, more space, if you will. To help with readability, we can also add grid lines. Okay, grid lines are extensions of tick marks. Tick marks are the things that go across the axes. Grid lines will go the whole way through the chart area. So if we go to grid lines, and let's do, let's do vertical grid lines. And let's say we want major grid lines. So you'll see every major, which remember major was 2 years, minor was 1 year. We added in our vertical grid lines. We could also do the same for the horizontal. I can't remember what our minor was for that. Oops. Okay, minor unit was every 400, it looks like. Our major unit's 200. So if we wanted to change that to maybe every 1,000, click close. Now we have, 2,000 we have a major grid line, and at every 1,000 we have a minor grid line, and every 2,000 we have a major grid line. Let's go back to, hopefully you guys can find it. Let's go back to our bar chart, if you will. And we're going to make this a combination chart. So the one series is a bar. The other one we want to show as a line chart. Okay, so New Century will leave as a bar, but the S&P 500, we want to show how our fund did as compared to the S&P 500. So let's select that S&P 500 series. So I'm going to go under the chart area and say this S&P 500 baseline series. So now that is selected. I could have just clicked on it as well and it would have done the same thing. Under design, I'm going to do change chart type. Now it only changed the chart type for the series that I'm selected on. So I'm going to change the chart type and I'm going to change it to line with markers. And markers means it's going to have a marker for the specific data point. So go down to line with markers, which is the fourth one in, and click OK. Now, I really don't want it to display quite like that, so I can change some things associated with that line. So if I click on that, and I go down to, right-click on it, go down to Format Data Series, I want to get rid of the line altogether. So the way I do that is if I go to Line Color, and it's automatically putting in that pink line color. I don't want that. I'm going to say no line. So now all I have is that marker. Okay, so no line, just the marker. And maybe I don't care for that little block as my marker. If I go to Marker Options, there are different types. I'm going to go to Built-in, and let's say I want the line. Okay, just a line instead of a block. And I can change the size of that if I want it to be bigger. I could change the fill of it if I want it to be another color. Okay, now I have, this is what's called a combination chart, because on one chart I have both a column chart and a line chart. Now I got rid of the line, but it's still a line chart, okay? And now I can compare where my New Century Fund did as compared to the S&P 500 for that given section, okay? We didn't get to spark lines. We will do spark lines and data bars on Friday